It was just after midnight on a lonely stretch of Route 66 in Arizona when Mike, a seasoned truck driver with 20 years on the road, noticed a pale figure standing by the roadside. The woman wore a torn white dress that looked like it belonged to another era, her dark hair wild, her face pale as the moonlight. Against his instincts, he slowed the rig and opened the door. She climbed in silently, her eyes empty, and whispered one word, "Home." A chill spread through Mike's chest, and he gripped the wheel tighter, uneasy but still driving forward. The woman pointed with a trembling hand, directing Mike toward a dirt road that barely appeared on his map. The further they went, the air grew colder, so cold that Mike's breath fogged even though the heater blasted warm air. He tried asking where she lived, tried light conversation to break the heavy silence, but she never answered. Her gaze was fixed on the road ahead, unblinking. When he dared glance into the rearview mirror, his stomach turned. Her reflection was not there. Fear crept up his spine, but his hands stayed firm on the wheel. They finally arrived at a worn-down farmhouse sitting in silence under the moonlight, its windows dark, its roof sagging with age. Mike parked and turned toward his passenger to ask if this was home. The seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. No sound had been made. She was gone. His throat tightened as he stepped outside, staring at the farmhouse in disbelief. An old, weathered sign hung crooked near the fence, bearing a family name. That name etched itself into his memory, one he'd never forget, though he didn't yet know why. The next morning, shaken and exhausted, Mike stopped at a small-town diner. Between sips of bitter coffee, he asked a waitress about the old farmhouse down the dirt road. Her face paled instantly. She told him the tragic story of a young woman who had died in a car crash decades earlier while trying to return home. Ever since, truckers reported seeing her on the highway. Some offered rides, only to find her vanish. Mike realized then the horrifying truth. He hadn't picked up a living soul. He had been driving a restless spirit searching for her final destination. For weeks, Mike carried the haunting weight of that night. Every time he shut his eyes, he saw her pale face staring back at him. Passing that stretch of Route 66, his CB radio would hiss and crackle, voices dissolving into static. On some nights, he swore he heard a faint whisper, "Home," rising above the noise. Other truckers began sharing their own encounters, radios dying, cold winds inside locked cabs, shadows moving across headlights. Many refused to take the road after sundown. Mike's story wasn't just his anymore. It had become part of trucking folklore across the Southwest. One restless night, unable to shake the memory, Mike decided to face the truth head-on. He drove Route 66 at the same hour, headlights cutting through the empty road. His heart sank when he saw her again, standing in the exact same spot, wearing that tattered white dress. This time, Mike pressed harder on the gas, determined not to stop. But when he glanced in the mirror, his blood ran cold. She was sitting silently in the passenger seat again, staring ahead as if she had never left. Mike slammed the brakes, the truck skidding to a halt. His chest pounded, sweat dripping despite the freezing air. He whipped his head toward the seat, but once again, it was empty. Trembling, he pulled into the nearest truck stop and refused to continue until dawn. From that night forward, he swore never to drive that road after midnight. Word of his encounter spread quickly. Truckers across the country began calling her the Lady of Route 66. Some believed she was only searching for her way home, but others feared she was a sign of death itself. Years passed, but Mike never forgot. To this day, he tells new truckers to beware of lonely stretches of road and strange passengers who vanish without a trace. He says the spirit isn't gone, she's waiting. Every time a streetlight flickers or a radio turns to static on Route 66, drivers glance nervously at their mirrors, whispering warnings. Some passengers never truly leave the cab, and the Lady of Route 66 is one of them. She waits in silence for the next driver willing to stop, the next trucker bold or unlucky enough to give her a ride.